Welcome to TechGeek webinars, our endeavor to empower TechGeeks. We believe that sharing of knowledge is a key of enhancing our performances and for our growth as professionals. With this principle in mind, TechGeek has initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give a crisp insight of various domains. Today's session is a third in the webinar series on software project management. We are delighted to have Mr. Prasad Prabhakaran with us today. Mr. Prasad is a project manager at Symphony Service Corporation Private Limited. He has more than 11 years of experience in working with cross-functional team in the matrix environment. Mr. Prasad has managed to lead large team, Agile way that was multi-site, multi-continent located in US, India and China for multi-million product lines. Mr. Prasad is an enthusiastic coach who leads by example. As a passion, he also runs Agile and Microsoft communities at Symphony Service. Mr. Prasad Prabhakaran is an avid speaker in public forum, and based on his knowledge, enthusiasm and experience, he is eminently qualified to speak to us today about Agile project management. Gentlemen, this presentation will continue for next 1 hour, and we will take your questions after the presentation. In the meanwhile, you can post your queries through the chat pane available in the webinar software. We will also be asking few quiz questions related to today's topic. Exciting gifts would be given to the participants who give the best answer to the questions. Without further ado, I introduce you to our guest, Mr. Prasad Prabhakaran.
Hey, good afternoon all. I want to check whether you guys are able to see my screen and able to hear my voice.
Yeah, Mr. Prasad, we can see your PPT and also able to hear your voice. Please go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And thanks for that introduction. So straight away we can jump into what is that in store for today. So the first 1 hour we structure our discussions based on I know that the participants here today are from various facets, need not be project managers, need not be designers, need not be developers. There may be folks who might have used Agile in their projects before. There could be some folks who have not used Agile before. There could be some folks who have understand about Agile, want to know more about Agile. So I'll just touch upon what is Agile for me, because I want to make a disclaimer. Whatever that I'm making, it's my perspective, my views. This I got it from my experience in working with customers in Agile project way in the last 6-7 years. So it's all my views, my perspectives. So I'm here to share some of those practices. So and I want to make it very clear. There's no prescription. There's only set of recommendations and best practices, which you can think of adopting at your place or using it in your projects, so that you can also benefit from the success which I have tasted. So that's the whole objective, right? So we'll touch upon quickly on what is Agile and what is the part of Agile that we're going to discuss on. So it's to bring everyone on the same page, so that whenever we use the specific terminology of Agile, we understand what it means. And then we look into what are the typical forces today driving agility. Why there's a lot of buzz around people talking about Agile and what are the forces? Why somebody's asking you to change the way that we are doing today. And then we look into what is weight and what is in agility. So what is lightweight, heavyweight? What is its perspective? In my perspective, what a weight means in a particular project management for IT. And we look into the different principles behind the Agile software delivery process. To make it very clear, we're talking about a software development project or a software project. And after that, we look quickly into some of those practical suggestions and values and recommendations that you can use to create an agile project management framework. And so that's what we're going to discuss. So I want to be very clear on what we are not going to discuss. We are not going to discuss on any tools. We are not going to discuss on any specific agile framework. We are not going to discuss on any technologies which enable specific agile projects. So we're going to keep it very broad. So based on your interest, based on your area of interest, in future we can specifically focus and do a deep dive on a specific agile project management methodology or a specific tools and technologies which enable to make an agile project in practice or instrument an agile project. So I'm not going to discuss any of those today, right? So I want to make it very clear. So as the moderator told you, whenever you feel there is a question, please do type the question. Your question will be answered end of this particular discussion. Right, so that's the context I want to set it. So quickly on what is Agile. For me, I go back to something called as an Agile manifesto. There's a set of software geeks who came together and formed an Agile manifesto for software development, Agile software development. Because and to make it more clear, the lean, lightweight principles are used mostly in manufacturing, in other industries, been used predominantly. But that's where most of these software geeks who want to build software which is useful, they came together and made a manifesto. So in the manifesto they were having a liberation thought, and they want to make it clear that software is a creative art. It is not a specific engineering process, because when you take any other engineering stream, there is a lot of machines involved. When you take a construction of a bridge or a construction of a building, you have man, of course, but there is 60 to 70%. Most of the activities are done by machines. But when you come to a software as an engineering domain or a principle, 70 to 80% of the activities are carried out by human being. So whatever the human being do, human being is not a machine. So it needs to be a creative process. So the thought process behind the Agile geeks are the software is developed by people, and it needs to be considered as a creative activity than a mere engineering process. So that's a basic philosophy behind Agile software development principles. So what does this manifesto says? You guys can go and see. You can go to agilemanifesto.org. There you will see very detailed description about what is this Agile manifesto all about and what does it mean. In short, it says individuals and interactions are important over process and tools. So they don't say you don't need processes and tools, but what they say is individuals and interactions are important. And also they also say working software is important over comprehensive documentation. And again, they never say documentation is not required. So there is general myth. When I say I'm doing an Agile software development method, I don't need documentation. But that is a myth. What it says is your outcome is a working software. So I need to value a working software over a comprehensive documentation. And the third value which says is customer collaboration or contract negotiation. So it's important to collaborate with the customer than doing a contract negotiation at the end of the contract. So involve your customer in your day-to-day activities, make him aware what you're doing, give him early feedback, do repeated releases. That's where the customer collaboration comes into place. And the last value which they talk about is responding to change over following a plan. What they say is, they don't say that you don't plan. They say that you need to respond to change. That's critical for today's business. And of course, you need to plan, and planning is required, but responding to change is more important than following a plan. So I summarize the four key principles behind the Agile manifesto. individuals and interactions over process and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation,
Sorry for
customer
disturbing you.
collaboration or contract negotiation.
I think your slides are not moving. We are still on the first slide, intro slide. Please recheck.
Yeah, I'm in the first slide only. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. So these are the 4 critical values the Agile manifesto says. So that. By saying that, I want to ensure that most of you are on the same page on what is that Agile we are talking about. Getting to the next and forgive me if I cough in between. I got a bad throat, so I may cough in between. You need to forgive me. So what are the forces typically driving agility? Why there is all of a sudden there is so many discussions around Agile. There is so many forums talking about Agile project management and so many coachings, so many consulting on Agile. As you know, today the world we are in, it's changing very rapidly, and change is not a problem. We need to change for good. So the nature of business that we are in today, there's a lot of mergers and acquisition happening. Enterprises are going global. The business model itself is changing. For example, a bank who was delivering their service via internet, today they're serving it via mobile. So the business model is changing. So they need to quickly produce the services for the end customers in a very quick, rapid way. They cannot wait in a year to launch a service, through a model of business which they are in today. If they don't do it quickly, their competition will do, and they will lose the market. So it's all about how the business is agile. That's a fundamental principle. And the customer expectations. When you are specifically in an outsourced world, your customer expectations are really changing. I've seen a few years back, a customer will come back to you only maybe after 3 months or 4 months when you start a particular project. They're not really bothered, or they had different priorities. And of course, I'll tell you one more thing. And the days are gone where people outsource because of the cost arbitrage. People are outsourcing because they find the local talent and the structured execution happening at an outsourced world. So the priorities and importance, things which are important to them, they're ready to outsource today. It was not the case a few years back. So customers are outsourcing businesses which are close to their heart. So they want frequent feedback, they want early feedback, and they want to see what we are doing upfront. So the whole model is getting changed. So that is driving agility. And of course, it's a natural evolution. As a natural evolution, there is no trigger, no change. The projects are getting shorter. People are collaborating heavily. The social network, there's corporate social networks, customer is involving in it. Stakeholders are very clear about what they want. So the natural evolution is driving agility today. And of course, the mindset changes. This is what I told. Most of the project managers today, the pro project managers, in quotes, they see and believe a software is a creative process. So it is developed by a team. So that changes, that brings more collaboration and value. And focus on outcome of software. So that's very important thing. So everyone is focusing on outcome. So these are the specific triggers which is driving us to lead a project in an agile form. Right? There could be many. These are the top 4 or 5 which I believe is driving into agile. So the key is, of course, the nature of the business, and of course the way the customer is doing the business. I get into the next slide, which specifically talks about the light weight versus heavy weight. So this is the slide which I want to spend some time. There is a lot of school of thoughts. It's a perspective of one individual. we cannot have one set of rules and process for every type of somebody building an enterprise application, somebody is doing a testing of an application, somebody is doing an integration of it, somebody is doing only a design aspect of it. There are many aspects of a software which people get into. Somebody is doing only a maintenance support, somebody is doing a professional support. So you cannot have one hammer that fits all the nails. It's highly impossible. So what does the lightweight means and what does the heavyweight means? When I say heavyweight, by respecting my colleagues who work on Beanbach and Prince and so on and so forth, which is heavily prescriptive. It will tell you, hey, these are the 20 things or 30 things that you need to do to build and deliver an efficient software. But it is good for someone, but it may not be same and true for everyone. So it's all context based, because the people who get involved in the project, the nature of the project, the technology you are in, the domain which you are working on, it's all influential factor which never got considered in a typical heavyweight processes. When I say heavyweight processes, it's about having a lot of ceremonies, having a lot of process points, a lot of artifacts. When I say it's a lightweight is something which does not mean I'll stop doing some process, I'll stop producing some artifacts, so my heavyweight becomes lightweight. No, that's not the way that we do. What is my end goal? Is a working software. Whether my process or the artifact is adding value to reach my goal, I need to do that. If there is a specific activity or an artifact or a process which is not adding any value, I should not do it, because it's not required for me. And it's all time sensitive. What is important for me at this particular point of time or a period of time, that becomes not important for me. And what is important for you at this particular point of time is not important for me, vice versa. So these were not considered in a heavyweight scenario. In heavyweight, it's like a bulldozer. You go, these are the 100 things that you need to do. Whether today, tomorrow, or day after, you need to do all these things. So there is no time-sensitive consideration. There is no context-based consideration. It's all about you doing repeatedly on what you are supposed to do in a prescriptive model. So that's where the lightweight comes with a little different perspective. And the weightness can be attributed to misapplication of a specific process. So you have a process, you're applied at the wrong place. You have a review process which is applied at the wrong place, which you don't need to review certain things, you're putting a review process. So a lightweight describes the weightness of the process and its artifacts. When I say weightness, it's amount of potentially non-value added artifacts produced by a specific process. Right? I'll repeat the word again. It's very important. The amount of potentially non-value added artifacts produced by a specific process. That's a weight which I attribute to a process. And a weightness can also be attributed to an undesirable consequence of a process. It means an artifact that does not provide benefit to the outcome. Right? So, in generally, what brings efficiency? Suppose you are an athlete, you are overweight. What do? You need to reduce your weight, right? And you cannot do an operation to reduce your weight. You need to do a weight reduction systematically. If you do weight reduction by swallowing some medicine you get in the market, you may reduce the weight for momentary, but you may keep adding and you may spoil your health by doing so. So when I say reducing weight, it should be a systematic and in following a best practice to reduce weight so that you become efficient. That is very important thing. So it's a common philosophy to become efficient and effective, you have to reduce your weight. So when I consider weight here, it's a weight of a process. I'll go to the next slide. I really apologize. I'll quickly touch upon Agile software delivery process. Right. We spend some time here. Yes. See, based on your Agile software delivery process only, you can create a framework on which you can manage an Agile software project. So, the key attribute of Agile software delivery process is increment and evolutionary. It should be modular and lean, and should be time-based. What are these? I think it's all about how do you create certain things or certain process which will help to inspect and adapt. So increment and evolutionary will allow you to adapt both internal and external events. This is one of the best attribute of Agile software delivery process. You are getting a regular early feedback in a short duration. So what does it mean? You are knowing your mistakes upfront in the cycle. You're not going to repeat it again. You're going to get early feedback based on your timeline. You define, hey, I'm going to do a time box of 3 weeks. In every 3 weeks, I'm going to take up certain set of activities I'm going to perform, and I'm going to show it to you. And you give me feedback. I don't need to wait till 3 months, 6 months to get feedback on what I'm doing. And it's all about modular and lean, allowing components of the process to come and go depending on the specific needs of the participants or the stakeholders, whatever we call it as. So you need to ensure that you take small baby steps. Take a small one, do it, go to a small next one, take it, do it. So it's all about, it keeps you always modular. So you can pick up what is adding business value to the customer at that given point of time. I pick up those things which add specific value to my customer at that particular point of time. Take it, do it, move on. And of course, it's all time boxed, built on iterative and concurrent work cycles. Of course, which will have feedback loops and progress checkpoints. So feedback loops, progress checkpoints, increment, evolutionary, modular, lean, these are the key attributes of a process which we can call it as an Agile software delivery process. Right? And I want to make it very clear, before we go ahead, is Agile is not a silver bullet. If you have a problem in your project, the problem exists whichever methodology or whichever process you use. But Agile will help you to identify the problem very early in the cycle. So don't consider, hey, I buy an Agile process framework, I implement from tomorrow, everything goes smoothly. Nothing will happen. It will go worse. Take it from me. What will happen to you is to take a transformational approach to change your way in Agile software delivery process. Identify, is it possible in your style of working to break your set of releases into small releases? Can I do, instead of 3 months release, can I do 1 month? Then look into, hey, what kind of collaboration I need to get into do with my customers? What kind of environment, engineering environment is required to enable this? What kind of automation is required to enable this to do faster? So keep that in mind. Agile is not a silver bullet. an agile project will have all the problems which you face in any traditional project management. But the advantage here is you will come to know it much early than in your traditional process. And another very critical golden principle is you do what is important and what adds values to your customer. That's important. Right, I just quickly skim through the next slide. So any method, when you look into any software
Mr. Prasad,
project management method.
sorry for disturbing you again. Actually, voice is breaking too often. Can you please
Yeah.
the connectivity at your end?
My connectivity shows maximum here. I'm close to my mic also. I'm not sure what's happening, but I will. So shall I go ahead? Is it okay with everyone, or you're getting frequent messages from others?
We are getting
that
feedback from
breaking?
participants, like the voice is breaking. So please try to a little bit louder.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
I'm going to speak more louder. I'll do that. Right. So what I was talking about is whenever you try to make any framework or any methodology, any management methodology, you look into what are the common aspects of the software development principles. There are many aspects. Okay, I've just listed out certain things here. And these are important, and whether you do it in a traditional project management methodology or an agile project management methodology, you need to have a way to do all these. It does not mean that when you are doing an agile project management, you don't do certain things. No, that's a wrong myth again. I was told by one of my management team here, hey, you're going agile way. Oh, from tomorrow onwards, I will not be getting any reports. I will not be getting any documents. I will not be getting anything. So it's all wrong myth. So if a document is adding value to your process, if a document is adding value to your stakeholder, please do that. That's required there. And what add values to you may not add a value to me. So that's where I said at the beginning of this discussion, there is no universal thumb rule. These are the 10 things that you need to do to become agile. No. Then it is not agile, because agile is non-prescriptive. There is no prescription. So you can create a framework. You need to create a framework. Depends upon your organization, depends upon your project, depends upon your customer, depends upon the people you have, because the behavior pattern of your people is very important to decide on what methodology you need to follow, because this is a creative process. Right? So most of you might have come across these common aspects, the thread of common aspects which is required in any methodology. So we need to find out if these are not important for you. I'm sure each of these will be important. Say for some of you, architectural design is very critical. For some of you, your performance testing is very critical. And for some of you, you need to have certain documents to be produced because it's a federal rule. You need to go with a regulation or a compliance. You need to have certain documents to be produced. So that is required as a common aspect. So you have to list. So if tomorrow you're going to influence your project in an agile way, first go and list this. What are the threads or the common aspects which is required for your project? And you need to know if you're doing it in agile or in a normal way, you need to have a facility to manage these. A facility to manage these, when I say, you need to have a process around it, you need to have some measures around it, and so on and so forth. So that's very critical for you. So what I want to say in short is, there are many attributes. This is the sample attributes here. You have to go and define those attributes for your project. Because if you're working on project A, the attributes will be different from a project B. That's quite natural. It needs to be like that. And that's what Agile stands out in the crowd. Agile is not another software taxonomy, because you need to understand the type of software that you're building. Are you building? Because the kind of attributes you consider if you're building an ERP application is different from if you're doing a system integration activity. If you're doing a system integration activity, the attributes you consider will be different than if you're building a commercial product. Assume you're building a commercial software product, the attributes that you consider will be totally different from if you do it in the SI business. If you are into a maintenance and support, your attributes that you consider is totally different. So you need to understand what type of software you are building. It's all very important, because that's where the Agile will give you flexibility for you to create a framework which is contextual, which is specific to your project, which is specific to your domain, which is specific to your customer. Because sometimes you cannot influence the behavior pattern of a customer. So if your customer, say let us say product owner of a customer, is quite busy with 10 different products. So you cannot expect him to give you a feedback every day. So you need to find out a way on which how do we facilitate that process in that particular context. So these are the critical things. So that's where an Agile project management methodology makes it unique, because it's not prescribed by a book saying these are the 25 things that you need to do. Yes, you are in Agile project management. Unfortunately, that is what our Teambox and our Prince and CMMIs and all these school of thoughts, they'll give you 25 KPAs, key performance areas, and you have to do that to reach your maturity. But here you define how it should be. That's a beauty. So just quickly recap. We're talking about Agile project management methodology. We have seen the different attributes which need to be considered for an Agile software delivery process. And we also have a quick overview on what are the typical drivers for Agile. Why people want to move in Agile way. And we're just seeing now how an Agile project management framework can be designed. So step one is identify the specific attributes and specific aspects which is critical for your project, your type of business, your customer, your set of people. Define those. That's the first step. Right. So now we get into something very interesting, something very controversial, because this is all purely on my set of principles and values which I've seen really working. Why an Agile project works excellently well than certain, I don't say traditional projects. I will say that a heavyweight project management method. So of course the key values, according to me, these are the key values of Agile project management. Communication, and it need not be on, you don't call it as Agile. Any project management, if you have these values in place, it will give you more benefits. It will make your project more efficient. It will give you more productivity. It will give you more quality. And I don't want you to call it as Agile. You call it as whatever you want. But if you build your methodology based on these values, end of the day, everyone is a winner. The team get delighted, your customer will get delighted, your management will get delighted, end of the day, you also will get delighted. So it's all a question about, and you coin any name, you don't want to call it as Agile. I don't want you to call it as Agile. You call it as ABC or XYZ, anything you call. But if you build a project management framework based on these values, it will provide you a hyper productive, efficient successful team which is being delighted by all stakeholders. Of course, communication, I don't want to dwell upon it. The information within and outside an agile project is constant. It should be constant. You start communicating very effectively in the beginning of the project, then you stop communicating. Then again you go and start communicating at the time of the release. No, that's not what I said, the communication. It should be constant. If you are sending a daily report, do it till you complete the project. It's a responsibility of the project manager to ensure that communication occurs effectively, clearly, and in a timely manner between all the stakeholders, to be management, to be the contributors, anyone. So why is stress on communication important is, since change is a constant in an agile project, constant communication is the only means of maintaining the connection between all the participants. So if you go dark for any significant amount of time, gone. The whole project will go for a toss if you are not consistent here. So that's the first value. How do you enable it? How do you instrument it? There are different ways. If your team is distributed, you use Skype, you use video conferencing, you use Wiki, you use collaboration tools. However you want to use it. So I'm not going to talk about how you instrument this. These are the values. How to put into practice? It's up to us. The second key value is simplicity. This is what I think most of our project management community need to learn. Most of the project managers are very good in making simple things complex. They do simple things, but they make it very complex. That's the nature of our project managers. Sorry to, if there are project managers there, forgive me, that's a quite nature I've seen. So defines, so what does simplicity means? It defines an approach to identify the critical success factors, the simplest possible solution. So identify top 5 critical success factors for your project. If you are a project manager, you need to have this critical success factors handy every time and define simplest possible solution. And how do you know that these critical success factors are getting implemented or getting executed? Definitely you need to measure it. And all activities must contribute a measurable value to the project management process. So that's a very important thing. So you do an activity which can be measured and which will contribute to your project management process. And you need to ask questions again and again. What is the value of, suppose you're going to do a task, ask 2 times. What is the value of this specific task or an artifact or project deliverable? What is the value? Why I'm doing review? Why I'm doing, let us say, engagement check-in? Why I'm going to do this? So any activity, any task, before you do it, ask what value this specific task or your artifact or your project deliverable is going to add to my business value to my customer. That's called simplicity. So keeping things simple is a standard principle. You need not be only an agile project. Any project, if you do this, you'll have an excellent ecosystem. And feedback. This is the very critical one. In traditional project management, I've seen we get feedback only 2 weeks before our release date. And somebody is in the project from last 3 months and you're talking to that resource, hey, you're not good at struts or Java after 3 months. I've seen people giving a feedback, hey boss, this UI is stinking. We don't need this now after 3 months. We don't want that. We want feedback to be early, frequently, and clearly articulating what is the alternative. And the feedback is a primary tool for defining and sustaining agility. So if you want to sustain agility, the first thing to keep it in place is, of course, the communication and then the feedback. Feedback need to be precise, crisp, early, frequent. These are the terms which I use. How do you enable it? You should have your mechanisms. You should have your mechanism to enable it. Courage. I take a pause. Courage is sometimes the way our system and where our community has been built today. Most of us don't have a courage to speak up to customer or to tell anyone saying that this I don't know. This was not part of the scope. This I don't understand. I don't have time to do this. How many of us will tell this? The biggest challenge which I've faced with my teams always is they never say no. So courage, all important decisions and changes in the direction of the project need to be made with courage. Because why don't we have courage? Because we have fear of failure. Our teachers and our parents never encourage if you fail. Suppose if our children fail in an exam, we never encourage. We only shout at them. So they have fear of expression and fear of telling what is possible. So courage is very important thing. So how does the courage will come? You as a project manager need to create a safety net. The team should trust you. Hey, if anything goes wrong, here is a guy who will safeguard me. There's a safety net built around me. Then the courage will come. So dealing with the consequence of change or discarding the outcome when the decision is proven, it requires courage. How does we take a decision which is, suppose we have, when we can take a decision, when you got enough data points, when you got enough information. If you don't have enough information and data points, we cannot take a decision. So we need to courageously say, my decision on this is inadequate. I need to go and tell with courage. Humility. I don't want to tell about this. The best project managers, you remember always, are the ones who accept that they don't know everything. And you need to give respect. You need to understand the sensitivity of people. You need to behave in humility. So what I'm saying is, this is not rocket science. Everyone knows about this. So why I'm stressing on this is, when you define a framework, when you define a project management methodology, by considering the basic attributes that you have, you need to follow these principles, these values. The next slide, very specifically focusing on applying these agile principles in practice. How do we put this into practice? We have seen some of the key principles. So applying these principles in practice creates a foundation for managing IT projects in an agile manner. So how do you assume simplicity? What I'm saying is, these can be instrumented, instrumented using tools, instrumented using automation, instrumented using technologies. I'm not going to talk about that now. We need to somehow have all these together so that these practices creates a foundation to manage an IT project in an agile manner. We discussed about simplicity. As the project evolves, it should be assumed that the simplest solution is the best solution. Assume it. Simplest solution, and that is the truth. Every time I've seen the simplest solution which we develop is the best solution. Overbuilding the system or any artifact in your project should be avoided. So overbuilding or overdoing, how do you cut a balance? That's where the experience comes into the picture. So as a project manager, you need to have a courage to not to perform a task which is not clearly stated in the requirements. I made a statement here. A project manager, you need to have a courage to not to perform a task or whatever artifact that you want to produce which are not clearly stated in the requirements as needed for the immediate benefit of your stakeholder. It could be a management, it could be the customer, it could be your stakeholders, whoever it may be. That's called assuming simplicity. It's a principle. It can be practiced easily. Embrace change. So this is the universal truth for Agile. And people say, sometimes customer will read it in different way. They feel, yeah, anytime I can change my requirement. Hey, it's Agile. What does change means? Of course, the requirements evolve over time. And of course, the stakeholders' understanding of the requirements also will change over time. See, when you get into a project, the first day, your perspective of the requirements will be different. And after a month, your perspective of the requirements will change. Project stakeholders themselves may change. Is it? People may change. Attritions. In India, it's quite common. People will come, go. The project stakeholders may change their point of view, which will, in fact, may have to go and change your goals again. What I'm saying is, how do you create the shortest chunk possible so that the changes will have less impact to your goals and to your overall strategy that you're going to follow? How do you reach there? And how does we project these management effort to do change management and so on and so forth? So how do you do? So you need to have a mechanism. You need to follow a certain framework which will allow you to manage this effectively. You may use a Scrum framework. You may use any different Agile project management framework which will help you to allow changes, but of course in a controlled way, and enable you to embrace these changes. This is an interesting principle which I got it from Alistair Cockburn. I don't know how many have heard about him. Alistair Cockburn is one of those guys who wrote Agile Manifesto. He founded Crystal Methods. He told very clearly in one of his books, I like this principle. Enabling the next effort is also a goal. Most of the time, hey, we deliver something, yeah, done. We've done our goal. So that is one of the biggest mistakes normally in our Indian folks do. I have a release date, I have a code freeze by this time, I push my code, done. After that, but what is the next effort? The next effort is also part of the goal. You might have checked in your code. The next effort is, hey, there is a small database change. I need to go and make a specific change for that. That is also part of this goal. So if you have that mindset, if you create that environment, for example, you have delivered something, you need to quickly provide a support. You need to provide a robust framework or support for that. That's also part of the goal. So the next effort is also part of your goal. And you can read that book, that URL, crystalmethods.org. You find that game called software development game. Your secondary goal is to set up, play the next game. That's what At least the top one says. Incremental changes. This is interesting. The pressure to get it right the first time always overwhelms the project managers. Project managers always try to get it right the first time. Instead of that, you need to try to start, put a stake in ground, develop small portions of the system. Instead of trying to eat which does not fit in your size, take small portions and chew it. And that makes life more easy. So the big bang days are gone, where in which you go with 150 features in one release. You evolve over a period of time. You simply discard it when you no longer need it in an incremental manner. Assume that you are going to take only a small one. It's not that for everything you need to have an incremental. If it is not required, it's a small thing, you can chew it, do it. Don't ask for, hey, I'll take one more iteration. You need to really balance it. Of course, the maximize stakeholder value, everyone knows that. The project stakeholders are investing their time, their money, their facilities to have a system deployed that meets their need. Of course, stakeholders expect that their investment to be applied in the best way. So you need to understand what is the role of a stakeholder and what he expects from the project, and define it upfront and provide it to them frequently, very early, so that they are not in dark. So provide that communication upfront early. Manage with a purpose. Again, repeatedly, I told many times, create artifacts of the project management process that will add value to stakeholders. So don't create any artifacts or don't do any tasks which don't add value to your stakeholders. Always identify why and for whom the artifact is created. Sometimes, most of the times, when you create an artifact, you need to ask this question: why you are creating this, for whom you are creating this, and identify a valid purpose for creating the artifact and its audience. So that comprises the manage with purpose. Multiple project views, we all do this. We need to provide different views of the same process for different audience. A project manager wants to see certain things from your process. A team member would like to see certain things different from the project. Your BU head or your VP of engineering or your director would like to see certain different views of the same process. So, but considering the complexity now today in all IT projects today we have, it's very complex. So definitely the presentations need to focus on whatever that data we capture, need to present it in different formats to different stakeholders for an effective communication. That's very critical. So I'm not talking about how we're going to do it. There are different ways to do that. But what is my purpose is, put this in practice. You see your project getting transformed. Your customer delight increases. Your team's delight increases. Your management delight increases. And of course your self-satisfaction and delight also goes up. Rapid feedback, I don't want to talk about again. Work very closely with the stakeholders. Give the feedback very early and provide an actionable plan. Right? And there are numerous opportunities to provide feedback. Use those. Golden principle again, working software is a primary goal of the project. It's a debatable. It depends upon the business, it depends upon the customer. If for your customer you are engaged in creating specific artifact, so their working software is not important, but artifact is important. So the whole goal is not to produce exhaustive documentation or models or artifacts which nobody reads. Many of you have prepared many artifacts. It could be high-level design document or software requirement specification document, or it could be a test strategy document. Tell me, how many of you have read those? How many customer is going to read it? Who is going to read it? Right? So, but definitely everyone is going to test your application. Everyone is going to, check your software, whether it's working. Right? That's going to happen. So everyone is interested on a working software, which I can ship it. Keep that as a primary goal. If your business demands different, do that. Travel light. Oh, this is a very important thing. I've seen when you send an artifact, you keep the whole world in CC. CC to CC to CC, and then it reaches different audience and who does not have any direct interpretation of this document. We don't need it. We don't want it. And every artifact that is created and kept will need to be maintained over its life cycle also. It's very important. Suppose you have sent a requirement document to some 100 people in the system or 20 people in the system. I'm not exaggerating. Now, if you make a change, we need to send to all these 20, otherwise it does not make any sense. Or you need to have a system in which the changes are in one place. Or how do you communicate that changes? See, very, very important thing. The effort need to maintain these artifacts, what you create or produce, must be balanced with their value. Very, very important word. I have seen 2 full-time equivalents, 2 FTEs, maintaining one document which nobody is going to read. So avoid those situations. So every artifact that is created will need to be maintained. That's a golden principle. We need to maintain the artifact throughout its life cycle. And the risk of these artifacts will always create confusion over time if it is not properly maintained. An artifact, if it is not properly maintained, it will create confusion. You will use version 1, I will use version 3, somebody will use some other version, and finally everyone is in soup. So ensure that your artifacts travel light. That's a golden principle. So what is that I'm talking about? These are, don't think these are philosophies. These are principles which you can very well practice and create that ecosystem which everyone likes around you. That's what the magic these principles will give you to manage your project. So here I'm going to wrap up. Agile is not a rocket science or a silver bullet. It will not solve your problems. I'm making a statement, a strong statement. Whatever typical challenges a project has, every project will have that. It could be challenges related to people, challenges related to technology, challenges related to domain, challenges in managing customer, everything will be there. But why Agile? Agile will help you to identify those challenges upfront early in the cycle, provide right kind of feedback, communicate effectively, and solve it before it creates a huge impact. In a traditional project, the impact of those challenges are huge and heavy, but in the case of an Agile, we can control those impact. Very, very important thing. I don't want to consider a software activities, whatever that you do, whether it is development or designing or testing or creating UIs, whatever that activity that you are doing, for me, it is not an engineering process. It is a creative process. It's done by human beings. So if it need to be enabled to view the behavioral aspect of human being, because today, based on your mood, you can design very, interactive, highly impressive UI. Tomorrow you cannot, because your mood is bad, because we are all human beings. We have got emotional quotient, right? So you need to create a management methodology in which consider your software activity as a creative process. It's a fundamental debate which is happening across. Wherever I go and talk, I stress on this, because we are in a business of using creativity of people. So how do you manage creativity of people? How do you do that? So another golden principle which we discussed is identify potential non-value added artifacts and stop doing that. And the mantra is inspect and adapt. Communicate. Give early feedback. Get those feedbacks to every stakeholder and manage it well. So that's what I want to discuss in this 1 hour, where I was very clear on not specifically talking about a specific agile method or a specific tool or a specific instrumentation or an implementation strategy. I was typically talking about how do you can create your agile project management methodology based on your business domain, based on your set of people, based on your project specification, teams, which is critical for your project, and use these principles, use these values to create a framework around it. It is whatever works excellently for my team may not work good for your team, and whatever it works excellent for your team may not even consider for my team. So keep that in mind. Whatever that we discussed, all set of suggestions, set of practices which I found useful. You need to do inspect and adapt technology in creating your own agile project management methodology. There is no book, there is no cookbook which will tell you, hey, these are the 50 things you do and you become agile. So that's what thought I want to leave you with. So 3 golden principles. I'll go to that slide. Identify the common aspects which is critical for your kind of project. 1. 2. Create basic framework and values around those themes and act upon these principles. Will take you to a successful project. I'm sure about it. Right? So here is the next, and you may get goodies for answering some of these questions. So these are the questions which is for you. What are the agile project management framework which you have come across? I've not talked about it, but you can find out. Definitely you will be knowing most of them. What are the principles stated in the Agile manifesto that we discussed? Mention few practical principles behind agile project management. Mention few common aspects of any software development methodology at your project. Look into your project and see what are the few common aspects that you are dealing with day in, day out. Those are the aspects which need to be addressed in your agile project management framework. So these are the questions for you. Take down these questions. The best answer if you provide, you will be getting some goodies. That's what our friend from TechGeek says. Right, and what questions you have for me? I'll be looking into those questions. So we got some time in which we can take a few questions. So please do key in your questions. I'm not able to see any questions so far.
We have already shared the questions with you. Can you see in the chat pane?
All right. Okay. Right. I could see the hey, I'm not able to see any questions. In the chat pane, I saw only the questions which I've asked.
Can you check it there? I mean, the questions are shared with you. Are you able to see the chat pane?
I am able to see that. See, the last question I could see there is, please answer the questions shown on the slide only here. That's what I'm seeing.
Before that, if
that's the last
if you can,
I could see there.
If you can expand that chat pane, then you would be able to see the questions.
I'm doing that. I could see only certain questions from you, the TechGeek moderator. I could see only some 6-7 questions. They're all questions. I could see the first one I can say is, welcome to TechGeek webinar. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see still. I have expanded the chat window. I could see only there are 6 messages. It's all from TechGeek moderator, which is a welcome message. Then the quiz questions I can see. Is there anything which I need to do?
Okay. In that case, now I'll be reading out the questions, and if you can answer those questions.
Yeah, please do that.
So this question is this question has been asked by Shampa Ganguly. She's asking, as Agile manifesto says less documentation, how Agile methodology ensures documentation process? Yeah.
All right. That's a good question. See, if a document is adding value to your customer and your stakeholders, you need to do that. You need to add it as a activity in your planning. Suppose you say that your customer is keen in sharing your software requirement specification document to another vendor. Your software requirement specification is required. You need to make that. So what it says is, it never says you don't need to do documentation. It says you do your artifacts based on if it add value to your customer or if it add value to your stakeholder. So it says only working software or comprehensive documentation. It never says, hey, don't do documentation, only make software. No. Hope it answers you.
Okay. This question has been asked by Himanshu Tiwari. How Agile is different from Six Sigma? How can I implement it in my current organization?
The Six Sigma is a process improvement at how do you can automate it, or you do certain test and do it right way so that it will give you either a financial benefit.
Hello, your voice is breaking. Mr. Prasad. Okay, the next question is asked by Murli Krishna. The question is, when you say the word change, is there any specific change management followed in Agile?
Change is not a problem. So how does it happen is normally when you are in a time box, when you create a time box and say that these are the 10 activities that you're going to do in this time box, mostly I don't anticipate any change in that time box. What are the changes are made at external to the time box, and once I complete the time box, immediately I go into the change, what are the change I have required for. If that has a business priority, immediate business priority, and go and start implementing those changes. So change management is very efficient and effective in Agile project management. In a traditional way, you get to know your changes when you're doing a, maybe a last review with the customer. And then you make change, you roll back to whatever that you have done. So here, you are doing in short chunks. So change is managed very easily. So that's a golden principle is you need to respond to change. Yeah, you cannot say no to that. But in a time box, when you are focusing on a sprint, or what I call as, you're just focusing on 10 things, I don't expect something to be changed in that 10. Once I complete that and go back, hey, this has been changed. So I lose only the time box time. I don't waste a month or a quarter to implement the change. Yeah, you can read the next question.
Next question has been asked by Mr. Chaitanya Gauri. He's asking, when we say customer, are we focusing only on external customer? What about internal customers, management, other project teams for sharing experiences, etc.?
Yeah, all stakeholders. So when I say hey, stakeholder, it's very valid question, because in a specific in outsourced software service industry, see, our management expects certain reports, the customer expects certain reports, immediate reviews expect certain things. So when I say a stakeholder, every internal and external customer is involved. But at the end of the day, who buy this, or who is the user for this. In that perspective, your customer who is going to use this is the key. But of course, you have all the customers. So you make an artifact or a process which is used by all the stakeholders. It could be your external customer, or it could be your immediate project manager, or whatever it may be. Yeah, next question, please.
Been asked by Mr. Prabhu Singh. Agile methods is most popular in web development. How does it change in systems environment?
I don't agree with that. It's not only just popular in web development. It is popular in many in most of the systems. Not only just in web development. That's a wrong notion. In systems development, it is more suited, in fact, according to me, because you can produce something much early before you invest a lot in your systems and in your infrastructure. So you can do it much early, before you waste your infrastructure by having a wrong firmware or whatever it may be. You can do it in very small modular object, and the feedback and that you get up front in the cycle is very valuable in a firmware or system kind of project. It is used not only in the software development. As I told in the beginning, this lean and agile kind of frameworks and principles being used in manufacturing industry 50 years back. So it's not a new thing, and it's been there in place. It is quite popular in software industry recently because of the mindset changes, because of the nature of business that we start engaging now. So it is useful for all kinds of projects, need not be web based. But it excellently fits for web based also, because to provide the stickiness of your UI changes and then your layouts, you can have everyday sprint. Every day could be a time box there. You don't need to wait for a week. Thank you.
Okay, Durga Prasad is asking, can you give a real-time example in a project for humility in Agile project management?
Can you repeat that?
Asking,
can you please read it again?
Yeah, please. Can you give a real-time example in a project for humility in Agile project management?
Oh, there are many. Suppose we are doing a time box planning. Say you have 8 members in the team, and you're doing a 3-week sprint, right? When you're considering the capacity for that particular time box or a sprint, the first thing you should ask the team is there any planned leaves? If there is a planned leave, that is eliminated from the capacity. That's the highest of humiliation. I mean, humility, highest level of humility. Sorry, you're asking your colleague, I'm okay if you take leave, but please tell in this time box, do you have a planned leave? I'm not talking about emergency. There could be an emergency leave, there could be a sick leave, that is the exceptions. I'm talking about, yeah, I'm going to my hometown to attend a marriage. As a team member, I have a responsibility to tell at the sprint planning or my time box planning saying that on that day I'm not available. So as a project manager or whatever the name you call it as, he is considering, hey, he is going for that leave. No, so I do eliminate that capacity from my whole capacity. So instead of 10 days availability from me, I'm considering only 9 days now. So my planning is done for that. That's a one simple example which you can do it in Agile, which normally don't happen in the traditional project, where you apply for a leave, somebody goes on leave, we don't know what to do for that day, customer will escalate, and you will shout at me, I will shout at you, the trust goes away.
Next question is from Amit. how can developers
Yeah.
use Agile to ask project manager to make their tasks simpler? As you are saying, project manager makes simple tasks complex.
Okay. So it's a very nice, interesting question, because see here, in a typical agile ecosystem, it's a most of a self-managed team. Okay, you decide on what tasks that you're going to do it, because everyone has got unique specific skills, right? So you decide, okay, these are the 2 tasks which I'm going to take it up, right? And it's your responsibility to define that task in a simple way, right? So if somebody else won't define a task for you, and you decide it as a complex or simple, here you have an opportunity to pick and choose, hey, these are the 4 tasks which I'm going to do this week. And this is what it takes for that. It takes so many hours to do that. That is where, you know, the creativity aspects comes. You know, I start considering the tasks as a creative task, and this is what the effort it requires for that. And the project manager should have that humility to accept your capability. So that's a third principle, and it works magic. It takes initially a little difficult, but it works magic, I'll tell you. You need to influence it. You need to influence it. And one very important thing is, in agile projects, everyone is exposed. You cannot hide behind someone for long. If you don't have a capability to do certain tasks, you are exposed from day one. Not like in your traditional project management, where only once in 2 weeks you have a review, where on the second week somebody will come to know that you don't know how to do that. Here you know every day, because communication is that frequent. Hope that answers you.
From a client's perspective, is it
So we
better
can
to...
take,
Sorry?
yeah, I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions, or I want to wind up it
This
by
is the last
another 5
question we're going
minutes.
to answer, and the rest of the questions would be
Fine.
answered on the
Okay.
side itself.
Okay, fine, absolutely fine.
Okay. So this is the
Please go ahead.
question. From a client's perspective, is it better to go for waterfall or agile method? Which method will cost more?
It's if I understood the question correctly, every client expect something to be delivered early and shown to me, so that I will justify on the cost which I give you. For example, a client is paying for 10 resources for a month, and if he's not seeing anything, he will have only intuitions, he will only see reports, he's not seeing anything working on ground. Think about a situation where you are showing something every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks to customer. He will feel more confident, hey, this much of money I'm investing and I'm getting this much of output. So every customer for me will like agile methodology. And there's a thing called cost. Cost is relative. It's all context based. It's the same. Any project will cost the same. And according to me, agile projects overheads are less. So according to me, it should cost less. So guys, I think you guys enjoyed, and at least you could take something home. And it's all about your perseverance and your, continual motivated way that you look into these areas in which you can influence. As a project manager, you can influence. As a team member, you can influence. As any stakeholder in the whole system, you can go and influence. So signing off for the day. We'll be glad to receive any feedback if you got. All the best. God bless. Great day. Thank you.
for your informative session on Agile project management. It was indeed an enlightening session. I would like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a huge success. This recording for this webinar would be available on tegic.com by tomorrow. The next session in the Software Project Management webinar series is happening tomorrow on 7 December at 3 p.m. Topic: Trends in Project Management and its Future. Speaker: Mr. Ajay Rawat, Vice President, Cognos Solution India Private Limited. So see you all tomorrow at 3 p.m. Have a nice day. Thank you.